Hello, hello, hello. This is Eric with the Paperback Warrior blog, podcast, and YouTube channel. This is another exciting book review. It's sort of a spur of the moment thing for me. I didn't put a lot of planning into this, but I wanted to get up here and talk to you a little bit about a paperback novelization that's sort of like a cult collectible. It's the Halloween novelization, and I don't own it. I've seen it a couple times in bookstores, and it's pretty expensive collectible paperback, and it's got a really weird reputation as being very quirky, not necessarily conforming to the actual source material. And I'm going to get into all that and give you my review of the book and how I think it really is a catalyst for the Halloween mythology as a whole, taking into consideration the different timelines and the different directors and screenwriters and all that stuff. So I'm going to get into all that. Hopefully, you're a Halloween fan and you're watching this because you like the Halloween movies like me.
What harm is there in hearing them out?
But if you're not, then this review may not make a whole lot of sense to you, but I think you might still enjoy my review of the paperback as a standalone novel. And yeah, so let's get into it. So with the Halloween novelization, this is based on the Halloween 1978 movie. This was an independent movie that came out, directed by John Carpenter, written by Carpenter and Deborah Hill, and it was on a very low budget. It was based on a script that Carpenter ran into while he was in film school. It uses the iconic Halloween song, which, without no matter what anyone says, is Styx. Castle Walls, the middle part of Castle Walls by Styx, is the Halloween theme. I think John Carpenter in the past has said that he, kind of there was this twinkling on the piano and just came up with it, but it sticks.
There's more than one person in this room knows I speak the truth.
And then the idea of the steady cam that's used in the movie with the camera showing Michael Myers' perspective, first person, is something that was used really well in the 1974 slasher movie Black Christmas. And I think John Carpenter really used that to great effect with his 1978 movie. Granted, the music is a borrow, and the sort of the technique of the camera was sort of used in a slasher novel before this. Anyway, John Carpenter did a remarkable job with Halloween. It's a great movie. It's one of my favorite movies, if not my favorite movie of all time. I remember seeing it when I was a kid on WGN cable. It aired on Halloween night, and I watched it with my mom, and I was just terrified. And then the next night they played Halloween 2, so I got to see both of them back to back in consecutive days, and it just left its mark. I've seen the movie 1,000 times. I've gone to the movie theater and seen it a zillion times. Every time it plays in a movie theater around town, I typically go and see it. There's something about it. However, I've never read the paperback, the novelization. I've never read it. I've never owned it, as I mentioned earlier. I saw this paperback when I was a kid in a bookstore, and for whatever reason, I was like, I'm not into novelizations, so I didn't buy it. I wish I had. I can still remember it like it was yesterday, seeing it, looking at it, thinking, well, why would anyone want to read this when you can watch the movie? It just didn't really click with me, even though that was really my only chance of really seeing an R-rated movie was reading the paperback, which I've talked about in this channel and on the podcast before. But I don't know. I just passed on this paperback. I don't know why. I saw it much later in life at a book convention, and the book was like $100, and it continues to garnish really high praise from collectors, and then it also is just expensive. It's just an expensive paperback. It's even been reprinted. I want to say I'll give you the name here in just a second. I just wrote it down. It was reprinted by Printed in Blood in an illustrated edition, and that thing sold out immediately. So even copies of that at this point are really expensive. You can hop on Abe Books and see this Halloween novelization go for between $100 and $500. It's just absolutely insane. But
check through all the town hall records, recheck the libraries, talk to the Puritan descendants, make a really thorough investigation.
What makes it so collectible? Why do people talk about this novelization? Why do they think that it's so unique? After reading it this week, I can see why. It's definitely different. So The movie came out in 1978. The publisher Bantam wanted to produce a novelization of this movie. I'm assuming was sort of proposed by the studio. So Bantam had a guy named Richard Curtis write this novelization, and he wrote it for the 1-year anniversary of the movie's release. The movie came out again in 1979 to theaters after it made a lot of money in 1978. So they rolled it back out again for a theatrical a reprise, and they had this paperback to go along with it. Interesting enough, based on a Rue Morgue interview with this author, he said that he was given a script to go off of, and he saw the movie in the theater. And at the time, he hadn't seen it before when he took the job of writing the novelization. He had never seen the movie, so they gave him the script, and he went to the theater and watched the movie. And he said he took notes while he was in the theater, writing down just various things about the movie that he thought was interesting that would add to the paperback. However, as one can imagine, if you've seen the movie, there's not a lot you can really do as far as a novelization unless you add more things to it. The idea of a killer stalking a babysitter, there's not a lot that you really can fill up 200 pages.
I don't know.
So the publisher gave him a little bit of free rein to come up with his own ideas, inject new ideas, new concepts, and sort of pad out the paperback to make it a little bit longer, which is what he did. And that's where there's a little bit of factions that say, hey, I really like what he did. And other factions say, well, what in the world is he thinking? Like, this is insane.
So you'll get screwed.
So the way the paperback begins, and by the way, he wrote this as Curtis Richards. Richard Curtis wrote this as Curtis Richards. The author, Richard Curtis, he went on to write other books. He wrote his own series of private eye detective books that feature a sports agent. I think there were 4 of those. I reviewed one of them on the blog, but a sports agent working as an sort of an amateur detective. But he wrote a lot of books. He's mostly known as a publisher, a literary agent. He's worked in paperbacks his entire life, and to my knowledge, he's still alive. But going into this novelization, just to give you just a quick idea of how different this is compared to the movie. The movie begins in Haddonfield in, I think, 1950 something or another. And this book begins in the Iron Age in Ireland. So right off the bat, you're like, what in the world is going on here? This is crazy.
You're damn right. Can you imagine the headlines?
The hell with the headline.
But it starts out in Ireland, in Iron Ages. There's this kid. His name is Enda, and he's a deformed kid. And he really likes this girl, and I guess she's not going to give him the time of day. And he ends up. This is on Halloween, and this is the night of Samhain, and he ends up watching as this girl and this guy dance, and he becomes infuriated, and he ends up killing both of them. I think with a butcher knife.
For a few dollars, you can hire a woman who'll fit all your fetishes. She'll match your requirements perfectly. Then if you ever get tired of it, you can always run down to the employment agency for another.
Or a knife, and he ends up killing both of them. And the village, they bring him out, they kill him, and in fact, it says that the villagers rip him to shreds. And the remains of little Enda is brought up to this hill, and they bury it. But there's a caveat here that they curse the remains of little Enda's body. So he's been torn to pieces, buried, but they curse Enda's body. And the idea is that they say that there's a prophecy declared that the god Muck Allah, may not be saying that right, but Muck Allah is their god, and that he's going to curse these remains until the end of time, and this poor Enda soul, he will roam earth forever, reliving this tragedy. That's the curse. And then you get into this, after the 6-page opener, you get into kind of like what the movie kind of, it kind of blends right into where the movie is, with Michael outside looking in at his sister and her boyfriend are making out on the couch and then going upstairs. But I want to stop here for just a moment and talk to you about how crazy this is, but how this simple 6-page opener pushes into the film franchise and is really a catalyst for the Halloween film franchise as a whole. And I'll tell you why, but I'm going to add some other things in here too that take place in the first chapter. But the idea of Sam Hain wasn't part of Halloween 1. That wasn't the idea, it wasn't the concept. It was just Michael Myers killed his sister. He goes into a mental hospital roughly at the age of 6 or 8. I can't remember what it is. In the book, he's age 6, but I can't remember in the movie. It may have been age 6. He ends up going into a mental hospital, and he stays there until he breaks out later in life in 1978 and returns to Haddonfield and starts killing. Laurie goes after Laurie Strode and some of the other of her friends in the neighborhood. But in this, there's the introduction that there's a curse on Enda. And it's my theory, and this is probably maybe something that's introduced later in the movies, is that Enda was a Meyer. Enda was a very early ancestor of the Myers family. And because of this horrible thing that happened, they cursed Enda, which then cursed his lineage. So the Myers are cursed. In Halloween 2, there's more talk of this Sam Hain and the spirit of Sam Hain. And in Halloween 2, they introduce a new plot that wasn't in Halloween 1, and that's Michael Myers' sister is Laurie Strode. So that's kind of the idea is, they needed, why would Michael be pursuing Laurie Strode all the way from the neighborhood through being shot all the way to the hospital to track her down, in a hallway in a hospital? Why is he doing this? And they said, well, we need a pretty good reason. So they said, well, let's make it his only remaining sister. And Michael Myers wants to kill her. It's the only remaining family member. He wants to kill her. And that's why. But that wasn't in part 1. That's what part 2, the movie part 2 does with it. In this book, the idea that Michael Myers is possessed by this ancient, god is kind of introduced in Halloween 4. So if you think about it, Michael Myers being cursed, he's taking on the curse that was all the way back to Enda, and that curse is now bestowed upon him as a kid, and that's why he kills his sister, because he's reliving the same thing that Enda did. And if you go into Halloween 4, you see that all over again. By the time the end of Halloween 4 comes around, you see that Michael Myers' niece, Jamie Lloyd, Laurie Strode's daughter. Laurie Strode had died in an accident off camera, and little Jamie Lloyd is being raised by her foster family. And she's being pursued by Michael. But at the end of the Halloween 4, she becomes the killer because she puts the mask on, and then she starts stalking down the hall with a knife to kill, or scissors with the ability to, or the motivation to kill her family. So you can see Michael Myers' lineage would be Jamie Lloyd, and now she's the killer. She also has a psychic link with Michael, which might also be a part of the curse because she's reliving things that he's doing or living things that he's doing. She's seeing it, so it might be part of the curse. Halloween 5, you see more of this type of curse thing being introduced with this this curse of Michael Myers, which is the curse of Thorn, which again is a Celtic ruin. That's what they say is he's possessed by an ancient Celtic ruin of Thorn, which creates like a little bit of a cult. But the central idea that Richard Curtis introduced in this little 6-page opener paid huge dividends as the movies go on. I'll talk about that a little bit more, but we see Halloween 4 using that same kind of concept, Halloween 5. And then when you get into Halloween 6, the whole thing's dedicated to Michael being cursed by the thorn, because it's literally the name of the movie, Halloween, the Curse of Michael Myers. And then I'll stop there with the movies because I'm going to revisit that in a second. But going back to this novelization, in the first chapter, you see more things that are different than the movie. In the first chapter, little Michael Myers, who doesn't say a word in the movie, but in the book, he's telling his grandmother that he's hearing voices in his head, and he's also hearing voices from his closet at night. And his grandmother says something interesting. She says, well, this is the same thing that your great grandfather had been suffering from. And he did apparently something awful, but it doesn't say what he did. I'm assuming he killed someone. But they say that he experienced the same thing, which again is fueling the whole cursed lineage thing. Michael then has visions as a kid. He's having visions of Enda killing the dancers. So that's also fueling his motivation to kill. As you get into further in that first chapter, his mother's also commenting about the things that Michael's experiencing as a kid. Then you get into the whole kill scene, which in this novelization, there's a lot of sex. The author, I guess, needed to pad these scenes out a little bit more. So he adds a lot of graphic sex, which is something that is criticized often when we talk about this novelization. But
Junior likes them private parts. We knows what to do with them parts.
Got that right, Mama.
he does add a lot of sex. So Judy or Judith and her boyfriend have a graphic sex scene in the very first part of the book. Michael's kind of outside looking in, and he's watching them have sex, which again is kind of reflective of Enda seeing the couple dancing. And then Michael becomes infuriated. He waits for the boyfriend to leave. He goes upstairs. He butchers Judith.
She's so dull. Come on, rip her to shreds.
Michael's also in this book. He's also got a little bit of a sexual fetish. Mentions that Michael has an erection at one point because he's seeing these things happen. He ends up killing his sister, just like in the movie. Cops come get him as a kid, and they ship him off to Smith's Grove Sanitarium, just like in the movie. However, where this book changes things is we learn that Michael is probably going to be let out of Smith's Grove because he was only 6 at the time of the murder. They feel like he's too young to even understand what he's doing. He may have had just a weird nervous breakdown or some kind of stress-induced situation. He never knew what his actions were. And so this judge is basically insinuating that give it a little bit of time and I'm going to let Michael out. Like he's going to be let loose.
You the one getting out today?
Yes, that's right.
Scared. I can smell it on your plane. You'll be back.
And that's what Dr. Loomis thinks as well. However, when the time comes for Michael to be brought in for his hearing, that judge that had sympathy for Michael ends up dying. He ends up dying in a car accident, not related to anything Michael Myers is doing. He just ends up dying in a car accident. The next judge that replaces him is very critical of Michael and says, hey, he's never getting out of here. He's going straight back to Smith's Grove and he's going to stay there until he rots. And Loomis is kind of happy because Loomis explains to the nurse or the author explains to us that Michael, unlike in the movie, because I think in the movie Dr. Loomis says Michael's not said a word in years. But in the book, Michael's very vocal at the sanitarium, and he's in fact become sort of like a de facto leader of some of the other patients. And he's very vocal. And what happens is there's a kid that ends up giving Michael like some kind of food poisoning on purpose to mess with him. Well, the kid ends up getting killed in the sanitarium, but they don't know who did it. Obviously, it's Michael, but they don't know who did it. The kid ends up getting killed. There's another scene where Michael's trying to watch a movie or something, and there's an interruption with his watching, and the kid ends up getting killed. And they think Michael's the one behind doing it. So Dr. Loomis is like, Michael doesn't ever need to be out of here. We just need to keep him here. And then when Michael finds out that he's going to be stuck there, that the judge isn't going to let him out, he becomes quieter, more subdued, and starts to feel anger towards wanting to get out of the sanitarium. I'm probably missing a couple key things in there, but that's the gist of it. Again, these are all things that we don't see in the movie. Now there's a TV version that had extra footage shot for the TV version of Halloween. which shows Michael in the hearing as a boy and his time in the sanitarium very briefly. And and Dr. Loomis kind of walks in, and Myers is out. He's like a little kid sitting out the window, just staring out the window, not saying anything. That's really the only extra footage that they had. But anyway, going back to the movies for a second. In the movie, there's something that correlates with the paperbacks in another way. Rob Zombie, love him or hate him, Rob Zombie made a visceral version of Halloween, a very some people would say white trash version, a trailer park trash version of Halloween, and whatever. It's his own version of Halloween. But in Halloween 2, it's interesting because in Halloween 2, Rob Zombie has Michael seeing his mother in a white robe standing with a white horse. What's interesting about this is because in the paperback, in this novelization, this god that the villagers curse Michael with is Muck Allah. One of the folklore elements of Muck Allah is that he has, the Muck Allah, the god, has a white horse called Lerban, white mare, that is the gatherer of gifts for the god. So this Lerban, this white mare, would go around and collect the gifts and give them to Muck Allah as a sacrifice on Halloween. So I found that interesting because this is something that, again, this author introduces in this little 6-page opener that Rob Zombie later uses in his Halloween 2 reimagining by having Michael see this white mare and see his mother. To me, and my theory is that his mother is the god Muck Allah. He's making sacrifices to her by killing, so his mother will be happy. And the white mare is the gatherer of these gifts, these killings. I know Rob Zombie doesn't say that. He's never said that on camera or said that in interviews or anything like that. I think he had a totally different reason why he had this white mare in there with Muck Allah, and he's got this quote from a fake book at the beginning of the movie saying what the white mare was. But I mean, honestly, it sounds like he read this 6-page opener of this 1979 paperback and said, you know what, I'm going to use that. And we're going to see more of that in the movies in just a minute. But getting back to the novelization, once you get past Michael, the stuff happening in Smith's Grove Sanitarium, you get into basically how he escapes, just like in the movie, he escapes and heads to Haddonfield. Fast forward to the next day, Laurie Strode is talking to her father. I know in the movie he just calls out to her when she's walking out of the house. He calls out to her, "Hey, don't forget to put the key in the box at the old Myers house." But in this, you get a little bit more backstory. He talks to her a little bit more, and the author fills us in that because the Myers house had the murder in it, the Myers family hasn't been able to sell the house, and the Myers family basically just ignores that Michael exists. They just feel like he's a dead part of their family. Once Judith got killed, he's no longer part of their family. So they just up and move to, I think, California.
Then I've decided something. I can't stay here.
What?
But because they still have the house, they keep lowering the price and they can't sell it because no one wants to buy the murder house. And they really want to get rid of it to, basically end this horrible chapter of their lives. And then Laurie meets up with little Tommy, and they walk to the house, and that's where Michael is inside, breathing heavy, and sees her. That part is all kind of the same. We're going to get into the rest of the movie and how it kind of relates to the book. Mostly, a lot of it is the same. There's some weird stuff in here, though, like the scene where, if you'll recall, where Laurie, she's going down the little hedge and she bumps into the sheriff. There's this weird scene in here where instead of that happening, she ends up talking to the sheriff in that scene, and he shows her how to use a judo throw. And I'm like, that's just weird. So he shows her how to do a judo throw. Again, these are all things that the author felt like he needed to explain or add, and so he explains that. Another thing that he also explained in the book was that Michael can drive a car, and in the movie, it doesn't really explain how this boy ends up learning how to drive a station wagon, but in the book, it's explained that somebody at the sanitarium was showing Michael how to drive a car. So that's explained in the paperback. But anyway, we get to um oh gosh, where did I leave off? Anyway, back to the later part after she meets the sheriff. Everything's kind of the same, but they take out the entire scene where Lori and Annie are smoking pot and driving to the hardware store. And then the sheriff says, Michael, well, he doesn't say Michael, but he says somebody broke in and stole some masks and stuff. They leave all that out. And the reason why is because I don't think that the author was happy with Michael Myers' look. I don't think he liked that mask. Instead, he changes Michael Myers' mask to what I think is a clown mask because he talks about Michael's ruby red lips, which makes me think it's a clown mask that he's got, not the William Shatner white mask. It's a different mask, a completely different mask. He does describe it as grotesque, but it's more like a clown mask, not the Michael Myers traditional mask. You get into the whole night scene. A lot of that's the same with, Annie spilling coffee on her shirt, having to go outside to the laundry room. Michael Myers outside watching her, ends up killing the dog. All that's the same.
Typical. I would expect that.
The scene with her other friend, I can't think of her name, Linda and Bob, that's explicit. Linda and Bob come over to the house. They end up having sex. It's pretty graphic sex.
What if they don't want to have sex?
And then it's a little bit different here because Bob goes downstairs to get a beer. If you recall, she's like, they're smoking a cigarette after having sex. And she's like, Bob, go get me a beer. And he's like, I thought you were going to get me one. Well, when he goes downstairs in the movie, Michael kind of surprises him from a pantry and then stabs him into the wall. In the book, it's different. Bob comes down, sees Michael in the house, and then they have a physical struggle. Michael ends up kind of wrestling with Bob and ends up killing Bob that way, not the way in the movie. I don't know why he changed it, but I guess he needed to add some more to that scene to pad it out a little bit. Same thing, Michael goes upstairs, kills Linda, but a little bit more gory. Instead of him wrapping the phone cord around her and strangling her, I do believe he stabs her, I think, if I'm recalling. The scene with Annie coming outside and getting into the car, and it's locked, and then she goes back inside, gets the keys, comes back. He's in the back seat. That part is shortened, but instead of him just choking her like it's shown on the movie, and there's no blood, and this it's gory. He basically disembowels Annie in the car. He stabs her in the stomach and then kind of rips her stomach open, and her intestines fall out. This is seen later when Lori goes upstairs. In the movie, she goes upstairs. She sees Annie laying in bed with the tombstone behind her of Judith's tombstone, but there's no blood. But in this, Lori goes upstairs and sees Annie with her intestines laying out on the bed. So a lot different. And then you go to the scenes with
and that brings us to our main story.
With the scenes with I can't think of her name now, but the little girl that Lori's babysitting.
We don't know.
And then Tommy, they get put to bed, and Lori ends up going across the street. But that part's a little bit different because it's she goes in a little bit faster in the house and is finding different things, but she ends up wrestling with Michael in that house, falls over she ends up jumping over the banister because she doesn't feel like she has anywhere to go. I think in the movie, Michael kind of throws her down the stairs, but in this one, she jumps over the banister because she feels like that's the only way to escape him. And then sort of the same stuff. She runs into the laundry room or whatever, and he's coming through the door, and then she's getting back across the street. There's some differences here in the novelization. She's he doesn't come up from behind her, from behind the couch, like it does in a movie, and she ends up stabbing him, um, with the knitting needle, but I don't think it's in the neck. I think
Trying to frighten me.
it was something a little bit different, and they wrestle more in the living room. There's not just he pops up, she stabs him with the knitting needle, and then he falls down. Different. They fight, grapple with each other, and I think this is the reason why the author wanted to put the judo thing in there, because she ends up like throwing Michael, which doesn't make a it's just weird. And then she struggles to get up the stairs while he's down. Like, if you remember in the movie, she thinks he's just dead. He just falls down, and then she slowly walks up the stairs to the kids. And this one, he's chasing her up the stairs. He's coming after her, and she gets upstairs and she gets the kids, and they go in the bathroom to try to get away. And eventually she ends up in the closet and that kind of thing. But it's a little bit different. He doesn't just like fall over and then raise up in that iconic scene in the first movie where he raises up and gets up. It's different. There's also a lot of stuff with Laurie thinking about the things that Judith must have experienced. And she's always thinking about what it would have been like to be stabbed to death. She's thinking about this in the classroom. She's thinking about it when she gets home from school and she's in her bedroom and she looks outside and thinks she sees Michael. She's thinking about what it would have been like to be stabbed by Michael.
You ain't got much more time. 2 minutes. How does it feel when you're about to die?
And again, that kind of played in a little bit in my head to the curse, because it's saying to me, like, maybe she's a little bit cursed as well, because she just keeps being fascinated with Judith being stabbed to death. And she thinks about what it would have felt like for the knife to go in, thinking about things like, did Judith think about, she's never going to see tomorrow again. And then as Laurie's fighting with Michael, she starts having these weird thoughts as well. Like, no one's going to see me tomorrow. What are they going to say at school? What are my parents going to think that I'm dead? Like all these weird things that you normally wouldn't think about. But I think because of the curse, she is thinking about these things. So I think maybe that plays into it. Dr. Loomis comes in, shoots Michael, but when he goes over to the balcony, he looks down and he sees Michael's body laying there. And the boogeyman comment isn't there like it is in the movie where she says, "Is that the boogeyman?" He goes, yes, it was. That's not there. It's a little bit different. He goes downstairs and Laurie says, "Well, why are you going downstairs?" And he goes, "Well, I want to make sure that he's dead." And she's like, "Why would you do that?" And he goes, "It's because I want to make sure." And he goes downstairs, goes out on the lawn, and then that's when he's not there anymore. So that's a little bit different as well. Now, going back to this curse thing, I want to kind of talk through that for a second, and then I'll wrap this up. What you think about this curse? We talked about Halloween 4 showing evidence of Jamie Lloyd being affected by the curse and wanting to kill her family. Halloween 5, she's got the psychic link to Michael, and then we are introduced to this cult of Thorn thing in Halloween 6. Halloween 7 doesn't quite expand too much on the curse, and Halloween 7 doesn't either. But when we look at the most recent trilogy, which was made by last name Green, I can't think of his first name, but I didn't care for the trilogy. I thought it was piss poor at best. I hated it. But I want you to think about a couple things. In that trilogy, it isn't expanded upon that Laurie Strode is Michael's sister. I don't think that they ever said that in the trilogy. But if you look at it from that point of view and still think like the Myers are cursed, and Laurie Strode is possibly a Myers family member, if she's a sister or whatever. I don't know if it says that. I don't think so. But if she is part of the Myers family, and that curse is part of the Myers lineage, by the time we get to the last Halloween movie made, which is Halloween Ends, the third part of that trilogy, there's a kid named Corey who becomes a killer after meeting Michael Myers. Michael Myers sort of like gives him the mask. Corey then becomes the killer, and Corey is now doing the things that Michael Myers would do, like trying to kill this couple in their house. I was thinking, well, how would the curse affect him? He's not a Myers family member. But then I thought, well, he did have sex with, well, I'm assuming that he's had sex with Michael Myers' great niece, which is Laurie Strode's daughter's daughter. So it would be Michael Myers' great niece. Corey could have had sex with her, then sort of like the movie It Follows, for example. You kind of get cursed when you have sex and you pass that curse on to someone else, like an STD. It's like maybe Corey got the curse from I can't think of her name, but Michael Myers' great niece. Could have been that. Also, the end of that movie is almost the same as what happens in Richard Curtis's novel. In that novel, in that 6-page opener, the village goes and kills Enda and rips him to shreds. He's ripped into pieces. In the end of Halloween Ends, Haddonfield is the village, and they put Michael Myers in a grinding machine at the town dump. And they rip him to pieces. It's almost like whoever wrote that particular screenplay was thinking of the 6-page opener in the novelization, because they literally get together as a village and they rip him to shreds, and basically the thing is spitting pieces of him all over the place. Like, they just kind of the same idea. I don't know if they got the idea from the novelization, but it certainly seems like it. I'm really surprised that this little 6-page opener of this novelization affects all these Halloween movies. Halloween 1, Halloween 2, well, not Halloween 1, but Halloween 2 with the Sam Hain thing. And then you get Halloween 4 with the curse, Halloween 5 the curse, obviously Halloween 6 with the curse. And then Halloween Ends with Corey basically assuming the mantle of Michael Myers and becoming the killer. And then the village, just like in Ireland, Haddonfield kills Michael and rips him to pieces. So I'm like, it seems like this little thing in the novelization really spawned a whole lot of things within the Halloween universe. Not just the movies, though. There was a comic book. It was put out by Chaos Comics in 2000, simply called Halloween, that really kind of drilled down into what Richard Curtis was talking about with Michael Myers in the Smiths Grove Sanitarium, because it talks about the things that he's doing there as a kid, killing other patients and some of the things that happen. So I think that whole comic book idea was spawned by what Richard Curtis was doing with his novelization. I don't know if Richard Curtis has ever been given his flowers for coming up with this idea. I don't remember any directors, anybody in the Halloween universe talking about how Richard Curtis's ideas kind of spread their way throughout the whole franchise. But I might be way off. I may be like looking into this way too much. I don't know, but it certainly seems like it would go together. The other thing is Halloween, of course, has a number of other novelizations that came after this. There was Halloween 2 novelization, which was done by Dennis Etchinson. He wrote the novelization for Halloween 2, but he also wrote the novelization for John Carpenter's The Fog in 1980. He wrote Halloween 2 novelization and then Halloween 3 novelization as Jack Martin. And then Nicholas Grabowski came in and wrote Halloween 4's novelization. And then you've got the most recent trilogy. All three of those books have become novelizations, either by John Passarella or Tim Wagner. But I would also say, maybe one of the reasons why Richard Curtis was even given this project is because he wrote a novelization for the horror movie Squirm, which came out 4 years earlier. And that may be why he even got the job to do it. But he didn't want to be pigeonholed as to be a novelization guy. So that's why he used the pseudonym. But in that interview with Rue Morgue, and I'll put a link in the description. He says that he wanted to use the pseudonym because he just didn't want to be that. But he said after all these years, his whole career, this is really what people know him for, is this Halloween novelization. Did I like the book? Yeah, I mean, I thought it was pretty good. It definitely added a lot of different things to the movie that I wouldn't have really thought of. Obviously, it set up a whole future concept with this curse thing. The book is good. It's quirky at times. The sex is kind of pointless. I mean, I don't know why there's so much sex. Some of the things that Laurie thinks about is kind of redundant. And the dialogue, some of the dialogue is really, really bad between Annie and Laurie on the phone. And then also the stuff with Bob and Linda is really weird. But I love the whole idea of Michael being plagued by voices, hearing voices in the closet. All that stuff I thought was really, really cool.
Look, hey, look. I got a split. I got a show to do.
But anyway, that's my take on the Halloween novelization. Let me know what you think about the book. Just post your comments below. And thanks for watching.